affordable homes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's event, Rent is Due, Say Yes to Invest. My name is Katie West, she and hers, and I'm the manager for Homes RI at the Housing Network of Rhode Island. The Housing Network is the state's association of nonprofit community development organizations. We have a network of 17 members across Rhode Island who have built or preserved over 10,000 long-term affordable homes and contributed to the economic vibrancy of the communities they are located in. The Housing Network coordinates Homes RI, which is a coalition of organizations that are working to increase the supply of safe, healthy, and affordable homes. And I'd like to give a shout out to all of the people and organizations who are engaged in Homes RI, and thank you. It's really an honor to be doing this work with you all. And for more information about Homes RI, you can visit www.homesri.org. If you're just joining us this morning, thank you, and once again, welcome. If you'll be commenting or tweeting during the event, please use the hashtags #SayYesToInvest and RentIsDue. I'd like to start this morning by acknowledging the events of the past week in which we have, as a nation, have once again borne witness to the callous disregard for Black life that is an expression of white supremacy running deep in our society and structures. It's important that we recognize and acknowledge the historical lines connecting the seizure of land from Indigenous peoples to slavery and Jim Crow, to housing segregation reinforced by over-policing of Black and Brown communities, and to eviction and homelessness. We know that evictions, foreclosures, and barriers in accessing safe and affordable homes, including overt and covert discrimination, disproportionately impact Black, Indigenous, and people of color. These communities have also been bearing the brunt of COVID-19. Housing justice is racial justice, and we, especially those of us who are white, hold privilege, and are in positions of power, have more work to do. We need to be listening to those who are most impacted and have been doing this justice work. And when we say Black Lives Matter, that must be an action. As you know, today is September 1st. The first of the month is typically when rent comes due. And for millions of people across the country in Rhode Island, they're not able to pay. The stimulus and CARES Act unemployment benefits provided some relief in the spring, but hundreds of thousands of people were left behind because they were not eligible or could not access the benefits. With the end of expanded unemployment benefits coinciding with the expiration of eviction moratoriums, we are on track to see a rise in evictions, foreclosures, and homelessness like we've never seen in our lifetimes. In Rhode Island, a report from the Aspen Institute estimates over 100,000 Rhode Islanders could be displaced by the end of 2020. We learned yesterday that most school districts will be returning to in-person learning in 2 weeks, with Providence and Central Falls continuing distance learning. Over the last 6 months, children have had their lives upended. Families should not have to worry about where they're going to live during a global pandemic. We're hopeful that our state leaders will act with increased urgency to keep families in their homes during this state of emergency, so that children can start this unusual school year off without having to worry that they might not have a place to sleep, eat, or do their homework. Rhode Island has been experiencing a housing crisis even before COVID-19. In combination with outdated and racist zoning and land use laws, we have been underinvesting in the production of affordable homes for decades. We remain the only state in the Northeast without a dedicated funding stream for housing production. Prior to the infusion of funds from the 2016 Affordable Housing Bond, Rhode Island was spending less than $6 per capita on affordable homes, while our neighbors in Connecticut and Massachusetts spent $100. Governor Raimondo has proposed an expanded affordable housing bond of $65 million and a dedicated funding stream for housing production in the fiscal year 21 budget. And I want to thank our governor, our treasurer, our legislative supporters, Senator Conley and Representative Diaz, who are joining us today, who recognize the value of investing in safe, healthy, and affordable homes. We now have an unprecedented opportunity to make these investments become a reality, and we don't have time to waste. These investments will have real tangible impacts and benefits for Rhode Islanders and the communities we live in. We hold this event today to call on our elected officials and community members to say yes to invest. And remember, the state primary is on September 8th and the general election is November 3rd. We're excited to have Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea joining us at the end to talk about how you can vote in Rhode Island. And don't forget that voting is an expression of your values and that we can all vote for homes. I'm now going to play a short video featuring a woman named Lynn who lives in Waterview Apartments in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. Lynn's story ends with her living in an affordable apartment, but we know far too many Rhode Islanders there denied this same basic right. Thank you to United Way for supporting the production of this video, and a huge thank you to our speakers today. Say yes to invest.
I got the job of a lifetime. I worked in a greenhouse for years. You know the big things they have like at Gillette Stadium? All those plants that you see all make it all so pretty? We did the plants. Which means we potted up plants in humongous pots. I'm only 5 feet tall. It was killing me. After years, I had to leave that job because it was too much, and I worked a couple of other jobs until I ended up with fibromyalgia, so I finally got on disability because I could no longer work. Was running out of money and time, and I had nowhere to go. There's no apartments that I could afford, that anybody in my situation could afford. Regular rent is more than what my check is. So I was headed for my car and the shelter, the women's shelter. If you're on disability, SSI, or any of that, you cannot afford an apartment, one single paycheck. You can't anymore. Especially families with children. They should not be living in their cars or in boxes somewhere or in shelters. It's just not right. Right now, it's a 4-year wait to get in here. When I put my name on the list, it was only 6 months wait. I had my name in here, and this apartment opened up just before I was headed for the women's shelter. It was such a relief after raising your kids and working for years and ending up in your 50s with, oh my God, what is going to happen to me? To have this, to move into housing like this was such a big deal for me, such a big, big deal for me. I could afford my food now. I could afford my rent. I had a place to live.
Good morning, everyone. I think if we were all able to be in person and watch that video, that would be sort of, it'd ring a round of applause and maybe even sort of a couple of tears. That's such a great video and definitely demonstrates, the stories of countless individuals of why affordable housing sort of changes and improves the lives of many people. And thank you, Katie West, for such a tremendous introduction for today's event. Again, good morning. My name is Travis Escobar. I'm the project manager of public policy for United Way of Rhode Island. I'm also the co-chair of the Housing and Homelessness Policy Committee for Homes RI. And at United Way of Rhode Island, we know housing is such a critical need in our state due to the high volume of calls we get our 211 call center. During this health crisis, we've even had to scale up our operations and create programs such as Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor, a partnership with the state and multiple community organizations, is an eviction diversion initiative designed to help Rhode Island landlords and tenants resolve disputes over late or unpaid rent without having to go through the traditional court process. United Way has long been a strong advocate for affordable housing, helping fund the past 3 housing bond campaigns, and being a proud funder for such great housing organizations such as Homes RI. For me personally, I'm a product of affordable housing. I wouldn't have the opportunity to work with a great organization like United Way in the capacity I had, or be the first in my family to graduate high school and college if I didn't have a safe, healthy, and affordable place to go to on Public Street. And affordable housing, and my story, I think, is so related to a lot of individuals that go to affordable housing and how to really help families become financially secure and safe. So today, we're going to be hearing from a lot of individuals. I'm glad to sort of MC this event to basically say yes to invest. Our state must invest in affordable housing to be part of the recovery from this pandemic. And, as Katie stated, the housing crisis existed before COVID, and it's been a glaring spotlight, the housing crisis during this pandemic. And so now we're going to get on with our program, rest of our program, and I'd like to introduce the Rhode Island General Treasurer, Seth Magaziner, who I'd also like to mention is the only millennial to hold statewide office. Seth, thank you for being here today with us.
Well, thank you, Travis, and good morning, everyone. I want to start by thanking and recognizing Katie West and the Housing Network of Rhode Island, all of the coalition members, particularly the United Way of Rhode Island, Travis, for your leadership, and Courtney Nicolato. And I'm here today in strong support of the $65 million proposed housing bond, and also in strong support of instituting a permanent funding stream for housing in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island today, we face 3 crises at the same time. We face a deadly pandemic, a severe economic recession, and we face continued racial inequities. And all 3 of those crises have one thing in common, which is that more housing is a big part of the solution. We can address all 3 of these crises, COVID-19, the recession, and racial inequity in our society, by expanding our supply of affordable housing. When it comes to the pandemic, we all know that, unfortunately, in Rhode Island, like elsewhere in the country, the most people have gotten sick, and the most severe hotspots have happened in congregate living settings. So if we can increase our supply of housing, that will protect us from future pandemics, because it means that fewer seniors need to live in nursing homes. It means that fewer people can't afford housing and end up in shelters. And so it is a public health imperative that we increase our supply of affordable housing in Rhode Island to contain the spread of future disease. Housing is also a big part of the answer for how we rebound from this economic recession that we're in. In the Providence Journal back in July, I wrote an op-ed where I laid out a plan, a vision for how Rhode Island can recover from this recession. And in that op-ed, I highlighted affordable housing as one of the best opportunities that we have to put Rhode Islanders to work in the short term and help Rhode Islanders become more financially secure over the long term. We can help Rhode Islanders keep more of the wealth that they earn, by ensuring that there is more affordable housing for Rhode Island families, and we can put a lot of people to work building it at the same time. You know, the video that we just watched mentioned that there are over 30,000 Rhode Islanders on the wait list for affordable housing in Rhode Island. In addition to that, there are, according to the Housing Fact Book, 140,000 Rhode Island households that are cost burdened, that are spending more than 30% of their income just to stay housed. And so by expanding our supply of affordable housing, we can help make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Rhode Island families more financially secure. And then finally, expanding our supply of housing can go a long way to addressing the racial wealth gap in Rhode Island and nationally. You know, nationally, on average, before the pandemic, Black families had less than 10% of the accumulated wealth of the average white family. The average white family had a net worth of over $170,000. The average Black family had an average net worth of about $17,000. And home ownership is one of the most powerful generators of wealth for American families. But of course, historically, Black and brown families, particularly African American families, were denied that opportunity to build wealth through home ownership. We're denied the opportunity due to segregation, due to redlining, and due to unfair zoning practices that in many cases still persist till today. So if we want to correct those inequities, if we want to help Black families get on an equal footing so that Black children have an equal opportunity to advance in our society and aren't starting out from behind early in life, one of the best things that we can do is expand our supply of housing, make it easier for families from our communities of color to achieve the dream of home ownership and begin to build intergenerational wealth. So I'm very pleased that the governor recognizes that housing is vital to our continued economic progress in Rhode Island. I'm very pleased that the housing bond proposal was expanded from $25 million to $65 million, and that for the first time in Rhode Island, there is a proposal for a permanent funding stream from a real estate transfer tax in the budget. I strongly urge the General Assembly to take these matters up and to pass them. On the housing bond in particular, there is a deadline coming up. The legislature will need to come back by mid-September to vote to put that bond on the ballot so that Rhode Island voters will have the opportunity in November when they cast their ballots to vote yes on the $65 million housing bond that is desperately needed. I also hope that the permanent funding stream that was proposed in the governor's budget is also approved by the legislature, because this is an investment that we can't afford not to make. If we want to have a healthier community, a safer community, a more equitable community, and if we want to have stronger and more sustaining economic growth for Rhode Island into the future, we need to invest in housing now. We need to invest in housing so that our communities can be safer, so that we can have more jobs, so it's easier for Rhode Island households to build wealth and be successful, and for their children to get off to a good start and achieve their dreams. So I want to thank once again everybody who turned out today for your support. We have some good proposals that we need to get behind, and we got to get them over the finish line together. So let's support the housing bond, let's support the permanent funding stream, and let's all raise our voices together to get this done. Thank you again for having me. Thank you, Travis and Katie and everyone else who organized this event. Let's get it done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Treasure Magaziner, for your remarks. Saying yes to invest is addressing all of the inequities that we've had in community, especially in relation to housing and economic opportunity. And thank you for your remarks, your really detailed remarks about why it's so important that the General Assembly moves and our state moves forward on a lot of the proposals that are been put forward by our governor. Next, I'd like to bring on and introduce Senator Bill Conley, who is one of the lead sponsors to halt evictions and foreclosures during this pandemic. Thank you so much, Senator Conley, for joining us here today, and please begin your remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, Travis. Thank you for the invitation. I want to begin by really thanking Katie for her very poignant opening remarks that remind us why it's so important to work on this housing investment and the ramifications that it has throughout our community. And the video featuring Linda, there's an awful lot of courage, love, and resilience packed into that 5 feet. And she really is an inspiration for all of us and reminds us why we all need to work together to invest in safe, healthy, and affordable housing in Rhode Island. That we're in a very difficult year. One of the things that makes it so difficult is the uncertainty we all face, not knowing when we will be on the other end of this public health crisis. But one thing is certain: we cannot defeat it without creating access to safe, healthy, affordable housing. And we know that once we get on the other side of this pandemic, that the structural deficiency in housing that has been highlighted by it cannot continue. That's why it is so important to get that housing and infrastructure bond on the ballot in November, and so important that we all work to get it passed. But equally important is creating that dedicated permanent funding stream for our investment in safe, healthy, and affordable housing. You know, we've been in a cycle where we pass a bond, we bottom out on it, and then we pass another bond. Now is not the time for half measures. We can't fool ourselves, fool the people we represent, and pretend that the bond is adequate to the task. We know it's not. We must sustain our investment through that permanent, dedicated funding stream. This is the time to do it. We cannot delay any longer. As we have this discussion this morning, there is a very immediate need. And that immediate need is to keep our families right now in safe, healthy housing. That's why Representative Diaz and I have worked on sponsoring legislation to bring an eviction moratorium, a foreclosure moratorium into place now, and to support it by a mediation process in our judicial system that will make it work. I can't thank Representative Diaz enough for all her work, her effort, and her dedication, and how much I look forward to partnering with her to get that bill through this session and to the governor's desk. I want to thank General Treasurer and our governor for their steadfast support. I appreciate it, and I know that all of us working together, we will get it done. So thank you to all of the coalition that's here and listening. I look forward to working hard with you, and we won't stop and we won't rest until we get it done. Thanks so much for inviting me to the discussion this morning.
Thank you so much, Senator Conley, for your work and for being here today. And yes to invest, but also let's make sure we protect Rhode Islanders in their home and get an eviction foreclosure moratorium. Thank you so much. And next, I'd like to bring on the lead sponsor in the House, one of my favorite reps. She's still my current rep for the next week or so as I also move on. But Grace Diaz, the wonderful Grace Diaz, the representative of Elmwood and Southside of Providence. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Travis. I'd like to start by thank to Rhode Island, Homes Rhode Island Coalition for the great opportunity to be the voice for those who really needs a lot of people to pay attention to housing crisis. As you may know, my story in the House of Representatives and the work I do. Since day one, I'm advocating for children, for early education opportunity for all children in Rhode Island. But what does it mean to have an early quality education if the children families don't have a place to stay? Housing is a fundamental need that the family deserve to have in life. As I working in the state house, I witnessed so many family who struggle with so many difficulties in life. Difficulties to getting good job, difficulties to getting affordable child care, difficulties to having access to education. But the one is fundamental and need for all Rhode Islanders to make all the things working in their life is housing. I'm so pleased today that many good leaders, including elected officials, are working to make a big difference this year, even though we are all immersed in the health crisis or the COVID, the pandemic. At the Finance Committee, I always raising my voice about housing opportunity to get housing as the base and fundamental aspect of the life of the people. We know by other speakers and the great presentation by Katie West about the community that has more impact for housing opportunity. As she mentioned, is the Black community, Latinos, and all low-income family that housing is not affordable for them. For that reason, I feel very honored to join our Rhode Island Treasurer, Seth Magaziner, Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo, and my good friend in the Senate side, William Conley. We need to work diligence to make possible that many families in Rhode Island don't suffer the way they are. The video showed us how some seniors struggle to having a housing affordable opportunity that is almost impossible. For that reason, I want the General Assembly members, please working hard to institute permanent funding for housing. It's a human right, it's a need that everybody deserves. In the area I'm representing, Washington Park, Elmwood, and West End, it's hard not to be touched by the experience of many children and family live every day. I move with those emotions in my heart. I working hard every day to make significant change in their life, but nothing is possible if they don't have a stable place. So this year we had a great opportunity to vote for bonds that increase more opportunity. But in top of having those bonds approved by the voters in November, also I want my colleagues in the Senate and the House working with the coalition and everybody who cares about housing to make possible funding permanent that address this issue. Many families in Rhode Island, when they see the bill that Senator Conley introduced in the Senate and myself, they are so excited because they have a little hope of addressing the eviction that many families face in the state. So we need continue to keep the torch, the lead of the torch on and fighting together, advocating together, making big difference. That way, many families in Rhode Island able to enjoy the basic fundamental needs: affordable housing, safe and clean and happy place where all families, children, adults, and seniors can live and be happy. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. My heart, my thought, and my time is dedicated to make possible this pass because it's so important. And we should be joined together, working together until we get this passed. So thank you again, Governor Raimondo, and every single leaders in the House of Representatives, in the House, and the Senate that care about housing and working together to make possible we have permanent funding for housing in Rhode Island. So thank you so much for this great opportunity.
Thank you, Grace Diaz, Representative Grace Diaz, for your remarks, and again for all the work that you've done throughout your career to support affordable housing, especially now with the moratorium for evictions and foreclosures. Now we're going to be bringing on Sharon Morris, the Executive Director of the Omni Development Corporation, to continue talking about why it's important to say yes to invest. Thank you,
Good
Sharon.
morning. Thank you, Travis. I'm fortunate to be able to join this conversation as a developer of affordable housing to stress the importance of the Yes to Invest initiative that's being organized and sponsored by Homes RI. We watched the video a few moments ago at the start of this call, and Lynn is a resident of one of our housing developments in Woonsocket. We have senior developments and family housing throughout the state of Rhode Island. And while I was participating in the Homes RI conversations, I stressed the importance of making sure that people are shown the different faces of affordable housing. We represent a large tenant population in Providence, and many people often think that the affordable housing is only for low-income Black and Brown people who live in Providence, Pawtucket, and Central Falls. But affordable housing crisis affects residents across all races and also all economic levels, as well as seniors and families. And so, again, it was important for me to make sure that people see that not only Black and Brown people are in need of affordable housing. As we all know, we do not have enough affordable housing to service the individuals and families that are in need. With this current COVID pandemic, it's that much more critical for families to have stability. And myself, as well as the other community development corporations and developers of affordable housing, we work very hard to make sure that our tenants were able to remain in their housing during this crisis. We work with families. Our management companies work with families to help them remain stable during this pandemic. We also made sure that tenants who were facing financial hardships, we made sure that we went and we reached out to them directly to share with them the resources that were available. And we also just work with them to let them know that your health is more important than paying your rent right now. So that was very, very important for us to show our residents that being developers of affordable housing, we do care about them. So as we all know, again, there's not enough affordable housing to service the families in need. We have developed over 1,000 units of affordable housing in the state of Rhode Island. And it is very important for us to use the housing bond funds to do the work that we do. We were successful with utilizing housing bond funds on the recent redevelopment of 292 units of housing in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And without the housing bonds, that project would not have been able to be successfully completed. So we are encouraging all those that are on this call, please encourage your family, your friends, your state legislators to do whatever they need to do to get this housing bond question on the ballot in November. And we need to continue to work even harder to support a permanent funding stream for affordable housing development in the state of Rhode Island, because it's very, very critical for families to be stable. Housing should be a right and not something that's that's by choice. People need a safe, decent place to call home. And we realize that communities outside of Providence, Central Falls, Pawtucket, and Woonsocket may not be as friendly to us. And we also have some neighborhoods in Providence who unfortunately don't understand some of the challenges that we face as housing developers. So it's important for us to try to figure out how we can encourage people to dispel the myths of affordable housing, because some of these people, it's not by choice that they have to live in units that go by their income. And quite frankly, we do not have enough units that are able to accommodate the family's needs. But we will continue to work hard. I know myself as well as other affordable housing developers are committed to doing whatever we need to do to continue to develop housing. But without expanding this housing bond and without preserving and providing a permanent funding stream for affordable housing, it will continue to be difficult for us to do the work that we do. Thank you very much. Yes to invest.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for your comments. Yeah, we need to do everything that we can to support CDC's to support affordable housing development, and just get people the safe and affordable housing that they need to be successful in our state. And now we're going to give the floor to Suseli Morello, who is a resident advocate and can talk about their perspective, why it's so important to invest in affordable housing. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon to all. Well, yes, my story is this. I was evicted through the pandemic. The landlord I had, he walked through the eviction. I had my heat disconnected. I had my utilities disconnected in the middle of the pandemic by National Grid. And it is tough. We need more help. A lot of us don't qualify for all the help out there. We got kids, I lost my job. A lot of people don't hire. I work construction. That's what I do. So lost my job. I had an infestation. I had to throw all my food away. I couldn't cook, couldn't clean. Couldn't cook, couldn't have any food at my home. I had a rat infestation. And at the end, I tried to pay rent. He never wanted the rent. He just wanted to kick me out. He did. At the end, he did. Sorry, guys. I'm on the run. I'm with my kids. Go, mommy, go. At the end, he did kick me. It was hard for me to find a place due to the past evictions I had. I found a place, thank God. I'm paying $13.50 for a third floor. Management, the best way I can to pay for it, but it's a lot of money, nothing included. A lot of organizations have help, but me personally, I don't qualify for it. I'm an immigrant, and us, we're the ones that have been hit the most by this situation, by this pandemic, because we got no job, we got no way to support our family. And not only that, all the help there is out there, all the support, all the grants, they're asking for documents. We cannot offer any documents. We don't have a social security. We don't have a pay stub to show you. We work as we can on what we can. And it's hard, I'm advocating for my people because I've been through the process. I've been through the system, and I'm not scared anymore. I don't feel we should be scared. I think we should speak more and show the world that we need the help. Show the world that we need the help. Show the world that there is help, and show hope for all of us. A lot of people don't have hope. A lot of people don't have nothing, don't have a way to work, don't have a way to get the resources, don't have a way to get the grants. And right now, during the pandemic, getting an eviction, being evicted in the middle of the pandemic, you being scared by the fact that, I'm going to go to a new apartment. The apartment has the virus. All your family gets sick. Yes, it is bad. It is bad out there. We need more help. We need to raise our voices. Our people need to vote. We need to vote so people like us can get benefits. can have more resources for ourselves. Families don't need to be homeless. I was kicked out to the pandemic. My utilities were shut off. And I got kids. I had 3 kids. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a bad person. I'm just trying to survive in the world. Some landlords are getting away with a lot of stuff during the pandemic, and they think it's okay, and it's not okay. We're working families. We work hard for our money, and all we're asking is for a comfortable living, a place where it's safe environment for our kids. We don't want to live with rats. We don't want to live with roaches. That's not okay. That's not healthy. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to have this chat. And I'm support the idea. I thank everyone. I thank Gina Raimondo for the $12 million she gave for the Safe Harbor program. But not a lot of people are taking advantage of it. The people that really need it, we're not taking advantage of it because there is always a barrier between us and the help. And I think it's time that our leaders change that. I think it's time to change that, make the world a better place, make this community a better place. We can all come together, and brown skin and black people, we struggle the most. And it's not because we're bad people. It's just that we don't have the same opportunities that anybody else out there. It's because we've been judged of the way we talk. We're judged of how we handle ourselves. And we judged by the fact that landlords always take the advantage and say, oh, I'm just going to evict you. They put you through the system, you end up in the system, and there is nowhere else to go from the system. And then whenever you want to get a new apartment, that shows up in your record, that shows up on your name, and nobody wants to rent to you because you've been evicted before. But in reality, they don't know the real story about it. They don't know what really happened. They don't know if the landlord was the one to fall. They just go by whatever they see, whatever the landlord shows. You don't pay rent, they think because you don't want to pay rent. Sometimes it's because you're trying to pay rent and they don't want to take your rent. So I think we need to focus more on the people, our people. See what really happened. See what really happened in the situation and get more grants. Immigrants, our people, Latin people. We need more support. We need more ways to get the help you're given without any buts, without any barriers, and we're not getting that. We're just getting little stuff. We need more. We need more help. It's not okay for our family to be evicted during the pandemic. It's not okay for us to think, where am I going to sleep today? I spent months in hotels trying to find an apartment because every time I try to rent an apartment, my eviction is there, and that's not okay. We need to push more. We need our leaders to do more, and we need to get more done. I thank United Way, RI, for helping my family. I thank Neighborhood Works for helping my family. And I thank all the leaders and all the help that I've got so far. I've got the help, but there is other people that haven't got any help, that I'm still thinking about the help, and I'm still scared of speaking out. Nobody wants to speak out. So I'm speaking for my people, for my Latin community, for my Southside community, for everything. I'm speaking for all of them. So thank you guys. Let's support. Let's make this work. Let's get bigger. Let's get our voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucely, for sharing your story and for taking time out of your day to be with us. And I think that was just such a powerful message about why this is so important. This is not, this is not politics. This is people's lives, especially during the pandemic. And yeah, just thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Next, we have our Governor Gina Raimondo, who has been investing in affordable housing with the 2016 campaign and put a bond on the ballot for $65 million and has introduced a dedicated funding stream, something that has been a critical need and a critical ask by housing advocates for such a long time. And thank you, Governor Raimondo, especially with your work with the United Way of Rhode Island and Safe Harbor and everything that you've been doing around investments in housing.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you for being with us here today. Yeah, okay, yes, we can.
So, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. Thank you all that Homes RI does. I got to hear a little bit of what Susali was saying, and it's a message to all of us public officials on the call that we need to do more. She's exactly right. It's not okay that people are being evicted in a pandemic. It's not okay that people work full-time but yet are so poor they can't afford an apartment. It's not okay that landlords discriminate and are legally allowed to discriminate on the basis of kind of income. And if you listen to her and so many other Rhode Islanders right now, they're calling on us, public officials, to do more. So I promise you I will do more and continue to fight harder. I want to thank all the other public officials who are on this call. The folks here are the believers and working hard. I especially want to call out my dear friend, Representative Grace Diaz, and Senator Bill Conley. They have together co-sponsored a bill that would stop temporarily evictions. I 100% support that bill. I think we do need a legislative moratorium on evictions so we can get families through this pandemic. And I look forward to working with you guys to make that happen. As Travis said, this year I have proposed to the legislature a $65 million housing bond. It's one of the biggest housing bonds that has ever been proposed in Rhode Island. And look, the fact is, the way to get people more homes and to reduce homelessness is to build more houses. We need more supply of housing that's affordable for the average working family in Rhode Island. So the bond, if it passes, will provide for money to build almost 1,500 new homes. We are desperate for it. So I'm asking you, advocate to the legislature so that they put that on the ballot. And hopefully the people of Rhode Island will vote yes in November, and we'll be able to build more than 1,000 homes for people. And as Travis said, I'm also pushing hard for a sustainable, steady funding stream for housing. Rhode Island's one of the few states that doesn't have that. And the proposal that I have made is a very small tax on folks who are buying multi-million-dollar homes. And I believe they can afford it. And it's in everybody's best interest to build more housing and to do it every year, not just in a bonding year. So anyway, I mostly just want to let folks like Susali know we hear you, we see you, we're working for you, we're going to do more. We are pushing, and we need to do more. I'm sorry it's so brutal right now. It's so hard to hear your story and the stories I hear every day. It's heartbreaking. People are out of work, out of a house, scared for their families. We will get through it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. We hopefully will have a vaccine at some point in the near future. We are going to get through this, but in the meantime, I know it's hard. And so for everyone on this call who's pushing for more housing, more affordable housing, fewer evictions, no discrimination in source of income for housing, thank you for all you're doing to make Rhode Island better, stronger, safer, healthier. And let's just stay at it. There's a whole lot more work to do. Too many Rhode Islanders are housing insecure. And together, we're going to keep pushing until we make a difference in the lives of working families in Rhode Island. So I'll turn it back over to you, Travis, and thank you guys for having me, and thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you so much, Governor, for being with us here today and for your remarks, and again, for your work looking to expand affordable housing. Next, we're going to have one of the co-founders of Parents Leading for Educational Equity. You know, as we're returning to school, as Rhode Island's returning to school, the importance of education, especially families that are doing distance learning, right? So important to have access to a safe, affordable, healthy home during this time. So I'd like to bring on and introduce Janie Segui Rodriguez. Thank you, Janie, for being with us here today and for your remarks.
Thank you for having me. I also just want to kick this off by saying that since this event started, someone reached out to me through text message and was asking for help because they've been on the housing waiting list for a couple of years now. And it's, you know, a young mom with 2 children, and they've had no luck, you know, getting into housing. But from 2014 to 2018, I lived in Prospect Heights housing, the second largest housing development in the state. It was built through the New Deal. Prior to moving into housing, I was working low wage, exploitive jobs, constantly picking up extra hours and shifts, working well over 40, 50, or 60 hours a week. These were dead end jobs. Once I moved into housing, I could finally afford to only work 40 hours, enroll in college again, and devote those extra hours that I was using to pick up extra shifts to instead further my education. I graduated with my BA in 2016 and landed a full-time job with a $13,000 salary increase. As a family, we began looking for a home to purchase. Home ownership is the most common way to build wealth. I started graduate school in 2017, and during this time, I was still living in housing, and the housing market prices continued to soar. It took me 15 months, and in July of 2018, we finally purchased a house after submitting 9 offers. It was a long road here, and if I hadn't had the option to live in housing for 4 years, I don't know where my family and I would be today. Affordable housing provided my family with stable housing at a price we could afford. It allowed me to receive my BA, purchase a home, and finally in May of this year, I graduated from grad school. In addition, we have seen rents skyrocket and wages remain relatively the same. According to the 2019 Rhode Island Housing Fact Book, based on 2018 average 2-bedroom apartment rents, a household earning the state's median renter household income of $32,361 could not affordably rent in any Rhode Island city or town. Housing investments are critical to supporting our most vulnerable families and individuals. Give them a chance to change their circumstances. Everyone should have the same opportunity that I received. As an educator over the last 4 to 5 years, I have seen an increase in homelessness for students and families. According to the 2019 Housing Fact Book, 1,539 homeless children or youth enrolled in Rhode Island public schools. This is an increase of 23.6% over the previous school year. More and more families have resorted to crowdfunding to avoid evictions, and oftentimes we're the ones creating those GoFundMes to help support our families during these trying times. These issues that already existed are exacerbated by a pandemic. Stable homes are critical to the success of our students. During a pandemic, distance learning became mandatory, and if you were able to work from home, it became the new normal. Many families experienced a loss of income during this time. Last week, I opened my Next Door Neighbor app to see a neighbor inquiring about shelter resources as she recently became homeless. Once she was evicted, she moved into a hotel but quickly could not afford to continue to pay and was living in her car with her 4 children. She had been calling local shelters and they did not have space to accommodate her family. I made some phone calls and inboxed her some info. I often think of this family. Where are they now? Are they safe? Did they ever find space in the shelter? How will the children do in school? Will they be able to concentrate? As an educator, this has become a norm. People's intrinsic value shouldn't be tied to their jobs. It's important to remember that these are people, children, and everyone deserves to have access to safe, affordable housing. We must ask ourselves, what is the alternative to investments in affordable housing? If housing costs are prohibitive, poor and working class families don't disappear, they become homeless. A homelessness problem in Rhode Island would damage both the state's financial health and its moral standing. The state's primary is 1 week from today, Tuesday, September 8th. You can vote early at your local city hall during normal business hours. It's imperative that we support working families and pass the affordable housing bond, ensure a dedicated funding stream for long-term sustainable affordable housing, and pass a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures. Support working families, say yes to invest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janie, for coming here today and for your remarks and all the work that you do in the community. Next, we're gonna bring on a member of Sisters Overcoming Abusive Relationships, which I have a strong just fondness of the organization as my mother was a member, long-term member of the organization and advocate for domestic violence. So I'd like to bring on Cali Babbitt Spears to have her share remarks on why it's so important to invest in affordable housing. Thank you, Cali, for being
Thank
with
you,
us
Travis,
here today.
and thank you to everybody, Homes RI, Katie, for this invitation to the platform on the conversation about housing. And thank you for everyone in support. Thank you for everyone that's advocating. Hello, everybody. My name is Cali Babbitt Spears. I'm a member of SOAR, Sisters Overcoming Abusive Relationships, a task force survivor of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I'm also resilient and a community activist, and I am a mother of 6. I know about the importance of safe and affordable housing. As a child, there was domestic violence within my family, which resulted in instability in my housing situation. There were times I had a home, and there were times that my family and I had to live out of a car. I was in and out of foster homes. At the age of 8, I was placed with my aunt and uncle. I so badly wanted to feel that where I lived was safe and stable. And when the search for home as a child was difficult in itself, I so badly wanted to feel like where I lived was home. And this is when my search for a place to call home began. When I was 20, I moved to Rhode Island and met my now ex-husband. His family was close by. They had a nice home, beautiful, on a beautiful land. And they were also so very welcoming. I thought we'd have a family together and live happy and stable. After we had our first child, we moved into a house together. The property was private, isolated, and surrounded by his family. In that house is where the abuse began. My ex-husband used to tell me that our house was his house, and it would never be mine. He acted as if he acted on this, and this was very true. I was not able to make any decision about talking to him. I was not able to make decisions without talking to him. I was very independent before meeting him, and it felt like that was being taken from me. Gradually, I also began to experience financial abuse. It escalated over the years. My ex-husband told me that my job was to stay home and to raise our children. That's what his mother did. And that's what was expected of me. This isolated me even further and essentially trapped me. As our family grew and the abuse escalated, I feared staying with him, but I also feared losing him because we were dependent on his income. I was living in his house. If I left, I would not have been able to afford rent on my own. He had assaulted me many times in front of the children, but I was very fearful of being homeless and living in a vehicle with my children if I left. I had no support. His family wouldn't support me. They witnessed some of the violence, but didn't identify it as abuse. They didn't want to believe that they raised an abuser. The day I left, I had to make the hardest decision of my life. I fled to a local domestic shelter, having to leave all but one of my children. It was the infant. They only had space for me and my infant. After staying at the shelter for a while, I found an apartment that had enough rooms for me and all of my children. I knew my ex-husband would find me there. It was a small town, and this was the only low-income community there. Having this apartment, even though it wasn't completely safe for me and the children, it was my first step towards getting my kids back and my independence, which I eventually did. My abuser found me. He asked me, well, where else would you have gone? Since he knew where we lived, he was able to stalk me and physically Even though I was physically separated from him, I still felt trapped. But he continued to try to control me. He claimed that the community where we lived in, the only one was within my price range, wasn't a good environment for the kids, and dragged me into court many times to try to regain custody. Because of the lack of affordable housing options available to me, I had to choose between a roof over me and my children's heads and safety. No one should have to choose between safety and a roof over their head. Everybody deserves a quality, healthy, and safe home. We all have to practice using our voice to have a positive impact on our environment. I know that I wasn't the only one dealing with this abuse and the only one that wanted to see positive changes where I lived. That's what pushed me to do more for my community. I spent that year investing in my community. I wanted to invest in my self-confidence and in my kids and in our housing. I wanted to do something to make better for other people. Through organizing the community, I found where I belonged. I spent a year building relationships with tenants and seeing what our communities needed. I started advocating for my own children myself for the things we needed, like washer dryers in our units, screen doors, flower gardens, community garden for vegetables. We used our voices to call for those changes. I was on a mission. We faced resistance and backlash and were told no many times, but we continued on. Speaking up and speaking out, both housing needs and about domestic violence. After surviving an abusive relationship, I had an immense impact on me. The resilience that I gained from using my voice gave me the optimism and strength to move forward. Eventually, my family and I moved out of that apartment complex, and today I continue to invest in my community and in myself. The impact of having an affordable, healthy, and safe home far reaches me, for example. I was finally able to build a home for me and my children, not just a house, but a home. I regained my voice and used to help others today. I can dream and make plans ever since I left the abusive relationship. I have taken training financial literacy and am now practicing what I have learned, and I'm utilizing every tool that I was presented with. My goal is to be financially independent, and in 5 to 10 years, my goal is to own my own home. I wanted to be a homeowner because I know there will be a young woman like myself out there searching like I had to for the safety and a roof over her children's head. I want to be the change that I want to see. Let's take action and use our voices and our vote. Make sure that we invest in affordable housing because everyone deserves quality and a safe home. Having a choice of where you live and the security that many families fleeing violence need. It is so important to have options for safe, affordable housing because every family has different circumstances, and having a choice to where you live can be a matter of life and death. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cali, for sharing your experiences. And I know how difficult that can be. And just thank you so much for spending time today and sharing your story about why it's so important that we need to invest in affordable housing. Next, we're going to be bringing on the Secretary of State, Nelly Gorbea, who's been a long advocate also for affordable housing. And also, I think something is coming up on Tuesday that's really important that we need to talk about. But also, I hope we could also talk about, there's a bond that we need to get on the ballot. So there's also a call to action on that as well. So thank you, Secretary Gorbea, for spending time to be with us here today.
Thank you, Travis, and hi to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And every now and then, if you ever need an inspiration, you listen to people like Sharon and Cecily and Janie and Cali. I mean, God bless you for sharing what your experience has been and why this is so important, because like you, there are so many others, and there, for the grace of God, go each and every one of us. And it's, I've been involved in housing since, as it turns out, the beginnings of my career, back when I was a program officer at the Rhode Island Foundation, and it's been interesting and it's been heartening to see it grow, not as fast as we would like it to, but at times like these that are so hard, I do want, perhaps as the older person on the panel, to give a little bit of perspective that the change that you're working on right now, that we're all a part of, really can happen. We've gone through 3 housing bonds. I was involved when I was at Housing Works on that. And it's been clear, and now we have actual evidence of how important it is to have safe, affordable housing. It's not just, a theoretical construct. It is real to people who now have good health, good employment, good education, because housing is key to that. It's interesting. One of my youngest daughters pointed this out to me years ago, and it was funny. We're just driving around, and she, out of the blue, said, Mom, I really think housing needs to be available for everybody. And I said, I totally agree with you. And she said, because you need a home. And that's it. That's what we're all expressing here. And that, the work that we're doing here today, really, it's not just about today. It's about building a future where more Rhode Islanders can be part of our economy, can be engaged professionals and workers in our economy, or can be cured and can be helped through mental health issues because they've got safe and affordable housing. Housing is key, and it's why I'm very proud to support the housing bond program that the governor has presented as part of our budget. And we need to continue to push on that. And yes, as Travis said, one of the ways we can push on this is on Tuesday. Well, you have to do it by Tuesday, is the way we're talking about it now. You can vote early in person, or you can vote on primary day, September 8th. And I really, really want to encourage, not just the people here that are watching this are probably either, already have their plan to vote. You need to talk with each and every one of your relatives, your neighbors, your friends, whether it be on Zoom, on your FaceTime, on WhatsApp. Like, look at the people that you know and talk to them about what you experienced here today, the stories, the reasons why it's so important to make our voices heard through that ballot box. Any of you have any questions at all, we've got a great combination. You can either go on the web at vote.ri.gov, or you can go to 211, United Way of Rhode Island, and my office have partnered so that by calling 211, you can actually get your question answered in any of 150 languages on how to cast that ballot. Porque si no votamos, no contamos. Así es que let's make sure we get our voices heard September 8th. It'll be a warm-up for November 3rd. And I look forward to continuing this battle and getting this through the finish line, because Rhode Islanders across all economic levels deserve a safe, affordable place to call home.
Thank you so much, Secretary Gobea, for your remarks, again, for your advocacy. And yeah, call 211 if you need more information about voting. That's such a great partnership between the Secretary of State and United Way of Rhode Island. And also, please reach out to your elected officials and let them know, like, hey, we need you to put the bond on the ballot. As you know, this election passes on Tuesday. We need to get ready for November. We need to have the opportunity for voters to vote in November to approve the housing bond, which I know Secretary Corbett, you're a big supporter of, and looking to sort of do that. So thank you for your remarks here today. Next, we're going to bring on Katie West. I think we're going to do some closing remarks. So, I want to start by saying I'm very inspired by all of our speakers, and thank you, Katie, so much for organizing this event. Everyone that is streaming this now or finds a way to watch this later, please do a couple of things. Make sure you vote. Make sure you plan to vote by Tuesday. But also, I believe Christina Fox, shout out to Christina Fox, she sent a link about a way to be involved and tell your elected officials that, yes, to invest. We need to put a bond on the ballot. We need to pass a dedicated funding stream. And do everything that you can to reach out to your elected officials, again, to say yes to invest, but also we need an eviction moratorium, foreclosure moratorium now. There are people that are facing eviction, that are facing homelessness during the pandemic. It is ridiculous, it is absurd, and we need our elected officials to go and act on all things related to housing. If we're gonna truly recover from this pandemic, if we're gonna be able to help out individuals, we need to make sure that every Rhode Islander has access to safe, affordable, and healthy housing. So please share that link. Christina Fox, again, just put it on the comments. So thank you for that. And thank you, Katie West, and you can close this out for this program.
Sure. Thank you, Travis, and thank you for being willing to MC and participate in this event. Thank you to the Homes RI Coalition, and again, all our participants and the individuals and organizations that make this movement go. My heart is very full. There is so much to unpack in the testimony that was shared by our speakers today. I want to just thank Treasurer Senator Conley, Representative Diaz, Governor Raimondo, and Sharon, Suseli, Janie, Cali, and Secretary Gorbea. Really appreciate you giving your time. This isn't something that you have to do, but we very much appreciate you all advocating for safe, healthy, and affordable homes for Rhode Islanders, the need to stop evictions now, and getting out the vote. And that's what I want to close with. I said my heart is very full, but there's also more that we can be doing, and that are those of you who have decision-making power and are able to make policy for our state. We can't wait for these investments. I think that you've heard from these stories, and from even watching the video of Lynn talking about the fact that she was able to get into her affordable apartment within 6 months, and now the waiting list is 4 years plus for those types of developments. These investments are absolutely critical, and we'd like to see them be on the ballot in November. We'd like our General Assembly, we call on you all to make sure that we pass these investments and pass this affordable housing bond that are so desperately needed in our state. And I do want to thank everyone who has been supportive. And I also just want to encourage, echoing the calls to action. We have a very strong Secretary of State, all the work that they've been doing to make sure that people know about how they can access the polls, go early in person through September 8th and in the general election on November 3rd. So make sure that your voice is heard. I will just close by echoing, please say yes to invest, and also support this legislation where we have an opportunity to stop evictions and mortgage foreclosures during the pandemic. No one should be forced out of their home anytime, but especially now when we're in a public health crisis. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget to share this video. We'll be reposting it, and make sure that you follow Homes RI on our Facebook and our Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, everybody. Wishing you all a safe and healthy rest of the week.